Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, the international authorities, these organisations, funded, of course, by taxpayers, folks, that means you. And one of my least favourite over the last few years is the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, an organisation set up as part of the post-world order, who I think rather lost their way when it came to the Eurozone, the bailouts and many other things. Now, their boss, of course, the previous one was a chap called Dominic Strauss-Kahn. You may remember he got into quite a lot of trouble in America, was removed and replaced by Christine Lagarde. She has been running this organisation for some years, and in the run-up to Brexit, in fact, she saved her speech for 5 days before Brexit. And she stood up in Germany and she said, leaving the European Union would hit British living standards, stoke inflation, wipe 5.5% of GDP, and would lead to a recession. So she was very clear. If we voted Brexit, dire, dreadful things would happen to us. Now, I think you could argue, 2 years and a few months on, that actually GDP is up. We may not like it to be, we'd prefer it higher, but it's up. Inflation is at 2.5%. It's fairly sort of ordinary, straightforward stuff. And we're a long, long way from our living standards going down or a recession. She was wrong. Along with Osborne, Obama, the whole international community, she was there as part of Project Fear. But far from hiding her head in shame, far from disappearing and going away, she's back on the world stage today, once again, talking about Brexit. So please, listen carefully to the warnings of Miss Christine Lagarde.
Clouds on the horizon have not become lighter, but darker. As we noted last year, Brexit-related effects are the driving factor for the slowdown in growth since the referendum. All the likely Brexit scenarios will have costs for the UK economy and to a lesser extent as well for the EU. The larger the impediments to trade in the new relationship, the costlier it will be. This should be fairly obvious, but it seems that sometimes it is not.
So it's all a disaster. Although, did you note she wasn't quite as doom-laden with her predictions as she was in the week before the referendum, but still, all outcomes are bad. We are making a very, very serious mistake, and the Evening Standard runs with a big front-page headline, Chequers is bad, no deal, even worse, says the IMF, says the High Priestess of the Euro, of European integration, and indeed of globalism. There are many who understand what the IMF was founded for that'll regret that it's now become as openly and as overtly political as it is today. So I'm going to ask you right now, are you listening to the warnings of Christine Lagarde, or do you, like me, no longer believe a word any of these people say? And if you think, no, Nigel, come on, she's a very senior international economist, we should really take her seriously, call me on 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think, after all the predictions of the experts before the referendum, they've all been proved wrong, they're all part of the same globalist club, let's just ignore them. Text to 84850. Or maybe you think, actually, do you know what, all predictions are crazy, let's just see what happens and make the best of it, in which case tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course you can watch us on Facebook and comment there too. I'm here in the London studio. Do you believe these dire warnings of disaster that will befall us because of Brexit? Or like me, have you just about had it to the back teeth with this bunch of taxpayer-funded people working in the international community who love the European project, who in many cases see it as being the beginning of a higher global order? Let's go to Manchester. Let's speak to Angela and see what she thinks. Good evening.
Hello. I must say that Christine Lagarde is right, only for the side of the European Union, because she predicted, as you said a few years ago, that gate crashes would happen, everything. But wasn't she allegedly being investigated sometimes back for dodgy loans? I'll just make that point. But my point is...
Well, Angela, actually, she was being investigated for some dodgy dealings. She was convicted in 2016 of those dodgy dealings, but no penalty was issued to her.
How appropriate. Anyway, the thing I want to say to you is my friend and I, we have debated this more and more. And what we've done about Brexit is say what they're trying to do is debase it. And we looked up the concise definition of debase.
Yep.
And it says to reduce the quality or value of something. And that is what they're trying to do. They're trying to strip off layers of our democracy. They're debasing our democracy, these remains.
Well, they're certainly debasing our result, Angela. I agree with that, and I thank you. I'm going to go on to Croydon, speak to Lee, and you call into this show. So, Lee, when the impressive Christine Lagarde tells you you've done a terrible thing in voting Brexit, bad things will happen to us, do you believe her?
To be honest with you, no. I mean, I don't really know what the IMF does, like, if I'm totally honest. But, yes, I voted Brexit because... yeah, I didn't really want to pay for other countries. I agree we should have a no sort of tariff trade deal with countries you buy from. You got stuff we want to buy, we got stuff that you want to buy, so it makes sense. You know, we ain't going to charge you for it, you don't charge us for it.
Lee, I'm sorry, Lee. Lee, I'm very sorry. Are you trying to apply common sense to the Brexit debate?
I know, and I can't understand why a deal weren't done a week after we had voted to come out. It was simple. You go there, whoever it was, David Daisy, whoever. OK, cool, we didn't expect that, did we? But, right, what are we going to do? Can we deal with it, or can we not do a deal? It was a simple question. It could have been done a week later. Yeah. But, again, stuff that I thought they might be, like, just for this. Now, I know you worked in the city, yeah?
I did.
Was you commodity like buying and selling and that sort of thing?
I was in metals, copper, aluminium, stuff like that, buying and selling, shipping stuff. You've got it, Lee, yeah.
Did you ever deal with oil?
I did once or twice, yes.
OK, right. Now, hopefully you might be able to answer me this question, because people moan, stuff's going up, blah, blah, blah. Stuff's going up because of the price of transportation. Because of the EU, everything's got to go Euro 6. So now haulage firms got to buy new lorries. Where are they going to put that cost onto? They're going to put that onto the customer. That'll go point of sale, as in the price at the shops will go up. That's why the cost of stuff's going up, because of the EU. Not because of Brexit, because of the EU and its silly rules.
In the end, Lee, in the end, Lee,
Nigel,
all costs go to consumers in the end, and that's an absolute fact in whatever sector you look at.
Just a quick one. Oil, right? A few years ago, it was $150 for a barrel of crude, yeah?
Briefly, yes.
Right, and we was paying $1.38, $1.30, because I only use diesel, so $1.38, $1.39 for a litre of diesel. Yep. It then went down to about $25 a barrel, and everyone was happy because it went down to a pound. For my calculations, it should have gone down to about 40p a litre. Now it's crept up to $75, $80 a barrel, but we're now $1.33, $1.34. But so Lee, there are two reasons for that. One, increased government taxation, and two, the sheer cost of oil doesn't actually go through the cost of turning it into diesel, petrol, or whatever it is. But I do get your point, Lee. What should we say to Christine Lagarde, in your view? Oh, just go do one.
OK, got it. Thank you. Anne is calling from Belfast in Northern Ireland. Hi, Anne. Good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. There is no end to them, is there?
No, none. None. No, doom, misery, the end of the world, Anne. It's all coming to us. We are sinners. We will suffer in hell forever for daring to vote Brexit.
Tell me this. Did Christine Lagarde and her IMF not tell us that we would be toast if we didn't join the euro?
Do you know what? And I'm so And it's so pleasing to hear somebody say this. They told us if we didn't join the exchange rate mechanism in 1992, it would be a disaster. It led to record house repossessions and business bankruptcies because interest rates were wrong. They told us if we didn't join the euro, it would lead to the City of London virtually closing down, industry closing, foreign direct investment disappearing, and us becoming totally irrelevant. And you know what, Anne? The same people that told us those things are telling us Brexit's a disaster. Why should we believe them?
How can anybody take them seriously, Nigel? And yet you get the doomers and the gloomers and the blurs and the Cleggs and the Mandelsons telling us, oh, it's over, we're going off the edge of a cliff. How can anybody take these people seriously?
Because the truth of it, Anne, is this. They are using economic arguments, economic fear, to back up their political dreams. They want a United States of Europe. They want us tied into it. And in their own Walter Mitty world, they think Europe will be bigger and stronger economically and militarily than America. Can you believe it?
Ban it, Nigel.
It's not going to happen, is it?
We're not buying it.
We're not buying it. Right. OK, Anne, you are unconvinced. Madame Lagarde has not frightened you at all, Anne.
Not at all. Not at all. Look, I was reading up on her today. She has a conviction for mishandling public funds.
I know.
Oh, and she shouldn't even be in a job.
Well, it's a miracle that she is, although the previous one, Strauss-Kahn, was in even more trouble, wasn't he? Anne, what's the matter with you, Anne? Why won't you listen to experts?
Nigel, I am sick to the back teeth listening to their, and I'm not going to swear here, their crap.
No, don't. Right, OK. Well, that's...
Another. None of it has happened. I'm sure, you know... It's just relentless. And
it is. It's relentless. Anne, I thank you. I'm getting messages through. Nigel, I don't believe a word they're saying. Doom and gloom and telling us we are wrong. How dare they? Complete tosh, I get. Experts have no idea what they're talking about. Let's listen to Michael Gove in the referendum campaign on Sky News on the subject of experts.
I think the people in this country have had enough of experts.
He was absolutely pilloried for daring to take on experts. But when you actually look, folks, at what Christine Lagarde, the boss of the IMF, told us 5 days before the referendum, our living standards would be hit, inflation would be stoked, GDP would be wiped off by 5.5%, and a big recession would come if we dared to vote Brexit, and none of it happened. I'm with Michael Gove. I'm pretty cynical about these taxpayer-funded experts, and I don't believe a word of her warnings today. I simply don't. Tell me I'm wrong on 0345 6060 973. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive in LBC. It's now 6:15 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
The head of the International Monetary Fund's warning Brexit will hit the UK economy no matter what kind of deals agreed with Brussels. Jaguar Land Rover says it's scaling down production at one of its plants in the West Midlands from next month over Brexit and trading conditions worries. And the Duchess of Sussex is supporting a charity cookbook to help families affected by the Grenfell Tower fire in her first solo project as a member of the royal family. Lbc Weather, strong winds and heavy rain spreading northeastwards tonight. Windy elsewhere, a low of 12 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm J. Louise Knight, and starting with big problems on the tube. A signal failure means there's no Metropolitan line from Baker Street to Aldgate. Severe delays westbound on the Hammersmith and City line, and severe delays anti-clockwise on the Circle line as well. For the trains, London Overground can't run from New Cross Gate to Crystal Palace and West Croydon, and South Eastern have severe delays from Hither Green to Dartford. For the roads, the M25 is very slow in patches, anti-clockwise from Waltham Abbey, that's junction 26, towards Potters Bar at junction 24. There's a couple of broken down vehicles on that stretch. The M11 is stop-start out of town from Loughton at junction 5 to a broken down lorry at the exit slip at Harlow at 7, and queues can be expected at the Woolwich Ferry as only one boat's running.
This is LBC.
It's here, but not for long. Existing and new customers can get Sky's best ever offer on Sky Sports and Entertainment, both in stunning HD. Enjoy over 500 epic live football games and indulge in award-winning shows on Sky Atlantic, all for only £40 a month, saving you over £350. But this offer won't last long. Search sky.com. £20 standard setup for new Sky TV customers. Kit loaned at no cost. New 18-month minimum terms requires HDTV. Saving based on 18-month minimum contract versus Price is £64 per month out of contract.
Based on Sarah Waters' best-selling novel and from the Academy Award-nominated director of Room, critics are calling The Little Stranger a spine-tingling drama.
A long time ago, was this child here?
Susan died before I was born.
Deliciously dark and mysterious.
Nor be explained.
How innocent you are.
Superb. One of the year's finest films. 5 stars.
What happened next is a mystery to me.
The Little Stranger. In cinemas Friday.
Rollo, if I let you off this lead, promise not to run into the angry farmer's field. I'm not going after you again. Be good. Rollo!
Nobody likes chasing things. Xero online accounting software works for you and automatically sends invoice reminders, so you'll have less chasing to do and more free time.
Rollo! Come back!
Try the award-winning Xero, free for 30 days. Ask your accountant or visit xero.com.
Is your money working as hard as you do? Think about it. While you're grafting away, is your money working too? No? Then it's time to Wealthify. Wealthify is the smart, easy way to start investing. Just say how you want to invest. Cautious, adventurous, somewhere in between? And let Wealthify do the rest. Then keep track of your money on the app. Easy. Isn't it time for you to Wealthify? Download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
If you or your loved one has mild Alzheimer's disease, St Pancras Clinical Research in London would like to hear from you. We're looking for people aged 50 plus with mild Alzheimer's to take part in a new clinical research study. All volunteers will be paid for their time and reasonable expenses. To find out more about the study and apply, visit stpancrasclinicalresearch.com. That's stpancrasclinicalresearch.com.
Ever noticed how lots of adverts urge you to act now, don't delay, or be quick? Well, this is for the new Audi A6. It has touchscreen operation, voice control that understands everyday language, an optional intelligent sat-nav that knows how to avoid traffic. So, far from rushing, it'll give you plenty of time. The new Audi A6. Come and test drive one at an Audi centre. In your own time, of course. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
IMF boss Christine Lagarde tells us there are no good outcomes for Brexit. Actually, either for us or for Europe either. She's against Brexit for every single reason, although, to be fair, her warnings are not quite as apocalyptic as they were 5 days before the referendum, when, do you remember, the whole global community were telling us how poor we'd be if we voted for Brexit. Then, of course, she said 5.5% would be wiped off our GDP, inflation would be stoked, living standards would go down, there'd be an immediate recession. She's not quite as desperately negative now as she was then, but it's still negative stuff. And I'm asking you, do you listen to these people anymore? Or like me, do you simply not believe a word they say? Because I feel she's not speaking as an economist. She's speaking purely from the point of view of politics. Tony on Facebook says the same expert said if we didn't join the euro, things could go wrong. They were wrong then and they're wrong now. Let's go to France, speak to Gary, a new caller to this show. Gary, good evening.
Good evening. I'm not in France. I'm in London. But anyway, my point is that everything that Christine Lagarde said was measured. She's talking about the time when we will not be in the EU, which is not now because we're still in it. So you can't judge her comments now. I would like to see you come back and judge her comments maybe 2 years after we've left the EU.
Well, I tell you what, Gary, let's judge her comments of 2016, shall we? 5 days before the referendum, a wholly unnecessary intervention from an international monetary fund that was set up after the war to look after countries in financial difficulty, not to play global politics. And then she told us there'd be a 5.5% drop in GDP, inflation would be stoked, and we'd go straight into recession. Was that reasonable, Gary?
Oh, she may now be changing her position slightly, but the fact is, Nigel, you were among a band of people that saying we were going to get £350 million a week into the NHS.
Well, I never said anything of the kind, Gary.
No, you were among a band of people that were saying that. I know you didn't, but you were more than happy to be part of
Well,
that
actually,
band of people.
and actually, Gary, NHS spending is going up by a number very, very close to that, but that's by the by. Look, my point, Gary, is this. I am just about sick to death of these taxpayer-funded international organisations constantly playing globalist politics and doing their damnedest to stop us having our, expressing our will as nation states. That's what gets my goat, Gary.
And Nigel, I respect your position and the fact that gets your goat, but equally, I believe. And I was originally a Brexiteer, but changed my mind towards the end, listening to the arguments properly. I believe that with some adjustments, we'd been better off staying inside and trying to change the rules.
Don't forget, David Cameron went to get adjustments on the fear that if he didn't get them, we might leave, and he got zippity-doo.
David Cameron is a wet blanket, and he's a career politician, and he'll just play their game.
Gary,
and the same is happening to some degree with Theresa May's Chequers deal, because there's no doubt that it will be glossed up as something for Brexiteers, and it will be glossed up as something else for Remainers. But the fact remains that she's another career politician who wants to stay in Europe.
Gary, can I just tell you one thing? That since we did vote to leave, a few quite significant things have happened in Europe. Their pledge now for a European army is absolutely formal. They are heading for full fiscal integration and to have a Eurozone minister with the ability to intervene in all the Eurozone countries. They were talking on Wednesday this week about the harmonisation of corporation tax rates across Europe. European Union, Gary, has changed a lot since we voted to reject it. I suggest if you put those things back on the table, people would reject it even more strongly.
Nigel, it's done a lot of good, though. It's brought lots of former communist countries in under a much safer umbrella. So don't just look at the negative things, look at the positives.
Do you believe, Gary, that the European Union brought down the Berlin Wall?
No, I didn't say that, Nigel.
Okay.
I said that we brought in, under that European umbrella, a lot of former communist countries that may not have fared so well if they weren't brought under that umbrella.
Well,
That's what I said.
Okay, now, Gary, I'll tell you an irony here, and we can't debate it now, but it's interesting, that if you now look at what's being said by the Prime Ministers of Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, they're beginning to say, we left communism to be free countries. We're getting slightly worried that the European Union is behaving like our old masters.
Yeah, and maybe there is some truth in that, but there is an old adage that says you're better off being in the tent.
Gary, I know the argument. I disagree with it, but I thank you very much indeed for coming on and making that point. Nigel, it's simply all the fear factor. That's all it is. Time and again, the EU are reaching now because the leaving date draws close. Well, I think actually, in many ways, the Remain camp are getting more and more desperate as the 6-month date until we're due to leave gets closer. So there is a bit of panic out there. Christine said 2 things. 1, Brexit will hurt the Brits. 2, Brexit will hurt the EU. It's in the EU's interest to give us a good deal. Well, excuse me, as I've been saying on this show for a couple of weeks, I have detected quite a big change of mood across in Brussels, and interesting, the front page of today's Times was saying that Brussels now thinks the Northern Irish border need not be a huge problem using technological solutions. And that is if we have no trade deal. If we have a trade deal, a tariff-free trade deal, on Canada-style terms, there is no issue, folks, with the Irish border whatsoever. And I am ever more convinced that if our Prime Minister can recognise that the backstop she agreed to in December was a massive mistake that she was bullied into, that Chequers actually just needs to be scrapped. If we go back and say, right, sorry folks, this idea, we're going to stay close to you in lots of areas, is over. Brexit says we're not. Let's have a simple free trade deal. Do you know what, guys? They'd bite our arm off. I think there's a great opportunity out there for us in the next few months that could in many ways, I think, begin to unite the country. I hope so. But I will not be united in my views on Christine Lagarde and the IMF. Let's go to Kieran, a new caller from Hampstead. Good evening, Kieran.
Hi there, Nigel. There's 2 points I wanted to make. One, I would agree with you on the basis of what you say about the politicians in Brussels and the level of power they have, the irresponsible level of power they have, and the bloated nature of that bureaucracy. But I mean, and I agree with all of that. But that could be applied to many governments across the world, including our own. That's the first point I want to make.
Yeah, but at least, Kieran, we can sack our government.
Well, we can send different MEPs at any stage, can't we?
No, Kieran, forget the MEPs. They're a waste of space. It's the European. I know. I've been one for 19 years. It's the European Commission that run the show. Second point.
Okay, second point was this, that we're currently in a free trade agreement with one of the largest trading blocs in the world. There are only 2 such agreements that I know of in the world, this one and NAFTA, and you know how long NAFTA took to negotiate. Now, if we're coming out of that, not only are we losing our biggest trading partner at that point, we are also losing various international company trade that use our country as a basis to get into the EU. Once we drop out of that, those businesses are going to be looking for other countries within the EU to operate from, and that's something that we can't avoid.
Kieran, we are not in a free trade agreement with the European Union. It costs us net 10 billion quid to be a member of it, and the 88% of our economy that does not do exports to the European Union has to abide by their rule book, and we have a massive loss of sovereignty in terms of our courts and our parliament and everything else. The one thing it's not, Kieran, is free trade. Now, the argument that the UK is this gateway to Europe, you know, I've heard that argument about the car industry, etc. But, Kieran, I would just say this to you. We now sell more motor cars manufactured in the UK to non-EU countries than we do to EU countries. So I'm not saying it's not a consideration for business, but Kieran, I just take the view, and you called it the world's largest trading bloc. Kieran, let me just put this point to you. The Eurozone is 15% of the global economy. 85% is outside of that. Where do you think we need to be in the next 20 years?
Nobody's, absolutely. But then if you're talking about an individual trading bloc that's 15%, as opposed to every other country, which you could subdivide, in single-digit figures, you have to look at the biggest share that we have direct access to, which is just across the channel from us. I mean, it's nonsense to say that we have to look 100,000 miles away, or whatever it may be, to trade.
100? That's on the moon, Kieran. Exactly. I mean, even Australia's only 12,500 miles away. Kieran, the point is this. I want us to have trade, cooperation with our European neighbours and friends. I don't want the 88% of the British economy that is not involved in exports to Europe to be tied up by European rules. Do you get that point?
Absolutely, I do. And there's plenty wrong with the EU. I'm not going to disagree with you, but all I'm trying to point out is not just I'm very London-centric, but look around the rest of the UK, which voted in large numbers to move out. Yep. How much benefit they get from EU money, EU grants, companies based there that wouldn't be based there otherwise.
Kieran, there's no EU money, there's no EU grants. It's our money that gets recycled and sent back. Kieran, thank you very much indeed for your call. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 6:30 and time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
The head of the International Monetary Fund's warning Brexit will hit the UK economy no matter what kind of deal is agreed with Brussels. London's Mayor Sadiq Khan has called today's IMF report a bleak reminder of the effect no agreement could have on the city and entire country. Jaguar Land Rover is reducing production at one of its plants in the West Midlands to 3 days a week from October over Brexit concerns. The scale down's been announced just days after the car maker's boss admitted the future is uncertain. Rescue teams in the Philippines say it's unlikely anyone trapped by a landslide after a major typhoon will be found alive. The storm, which has now moved to parts of China, has killed at least 69 people. Lbc Weather, strong winds and heavy rain spreading northeastwards across Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland and Northern England through tonight. Windy elsewhere with a low of 12 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. LBC.
Carrie Simons, who of course was an aide within the Conservative Party, actually broke her anonymity concerning a piece that she wrote back in January, where she was one of apparently the victims of the black cab rapist John Warboys. She says the way she was treated by the Conservative Party and bosses there for her role there is one of the key reasons why she left. Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's a Conservative MP.
If she was treated like that, then the Conservative Party, rather than investigating Boris Johnson on trumped-up charges, should look at itself and see what it got wrong.
What does it say of the party if it were true?
What she has reported ought to be investigated and, if necessary, changes made.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7, LBC. Global's Make Some Noise Day returns on Friday the 5th of October. LBC's charity to help make some noise for those who don't get heard. This year we want to help even more charities, such as the Lily Foundation. Here's Louise, whose 2-year-old son Freddie has been helped by the organisation.
No parent goes on to have a child thinking one day they're going to lose them. The Lily Foundation are trying to do everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right now you can get involved and help change lives by donating at lbc.co.uk.
The 7 dwarves were in a bit of a pickle. With the mines closing down, their finances were somewhat fickle. They looked to downsize their home fast, so Snow White could make her debts a thing of the past.
Boys, the cottage is looking well rough.
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who buy properties in any condition and can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 2 days, hassle-free. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
People ask me,
Hey, Admiral, what's the deal with multi-cover insurance?
so I tell them, we take home and car insurance, bundle them up on a single policy and give you a multi-cover deal. Then,
But our renewal dates are different.
Yeah, renewal dates. No problem, I say. Start today with your home or a car and just tell us when you'd like the rest to join the policy.
Wow, that's so easy.
It's happy faces all round. And we end with, get your multi-cover deal at admiral.com.
It's here, but not for long. Existing and new customers can get Sky's best ever offer on Sky Sports and Entertainment, both in stunning HD. Enjoy over 500 epic live football games and indulge in award-winning shows on Sky Atlantic, all for only £40 a month, saving you over £350. But this offer won't last long. Search sky.com. £20 standard setup for new Sky TV customers. Kit loaned at no cost. New 18-month minimum terms requires HDTV. Saving based on 18-month minimum contract versus £64 per month out of contract.
Air France.
La France
is in the air.
With our new Oh La La deals, you don't just have to imagine. You can land in Johannesburg and set off on safari, surf the waves of Costa Rica, or discover Tokyo's tea houses. Oh la la, c'est magnifique. You can afford to let your imagination fly far, far away.
Air France.
La France
is in the air.
Book your flights via Paris from London by Monday, 17th of September at airfrance.co.uk.
Rollo, if I let you off this lead, promise not to run into the angry farmer's field. I'm not going after you again. Be good.
Rollo! Nobody likes chasing things. Xero online accounting software works for you and automatically sends invoice reminders, so you'll have less chasing to do and more free time.
Rollo! Come back!
Try the award-winning Xero, free for 30 days. Ask your accountant or visit xero.com.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
As the IMF warned, there are no good outcomes from Brexit. I'm asking you, do you believe this stuff anymore? Or like me, do you just write it off as being Project Fear again and again and again? A new sort of development today, Sky News are launching a campaign for an independent commission to organise leaders' debates from the main political parties at general elections. They want to have a commission that sets the format, handles the moderation, ensures the objectivity of the audiences and steers the negotiations between broadcasters and parties. This, of course, all started in 2010 with our first series of leaders' debates, and, of course, it was Cameron, it was Brown, it was Clegg. Then in 2015, the demand was, well, it's been set, and this happened, of course, with Nixon and Kennedy way back in America, and we've got to do it again. And it finished up as a complete and utter farce, I think, because the two big parties did not want yours truly playing a big role in this, given UKIP's level of support. So we finished up with a leaders' debate with 7 of us. I mean, Plaid Cymru were there. Now, I'm sure they're a very, very important political party in Wales, but given that fewer than 6% of the UK electorate even had the opportunity to vote for Plaid, what the hell were they doing there? So it really was very mishandled. The idea that you have a debate commission is probably, I think in many ways, quite a good one. I was entertained at the end of the election that 7 of us on the platform, the party that I led, got more votes than 4 of the other panellists added up together, and we got 1 seat in Parliament. Hey, electoral reform is a debate for another day. Now look, the IMF, Christine Lagarde, there is no point in me sitting here and pretending that I'm neutral in this debate in any way at all. I am furious at what the IMF has become. And here was me speaking about it in the European Parliament in Strasbourg in 2011.
Commissioner Wren, I've been looking at the IMF Charter, and there's nothing here that will surprise you. It's there to promote balanced growth, exchange rate stability, to lessen disequilibrium, and to help countries that are in trouble. The classic method is they shore up the finances and organise a competitive devaluation. Nowhere in here does it say that the IMF is there to support political experiments. And in so many ways, that's what Dominic Strauss-Kahn did. He used the IMF to help bail out the failing euro project, and as such, he was a very poor choice of candidate. And now you want to compound that by approving of Christine Lagarde, another member of the European political elite, another euro fanatic, somebody else who believes in propping up this euro project, and I would have thought, as she's got a vested interest, she is in fact a highly unsuitable candidate. It's as if the EU has hijacked the IMF.
So that was me 7 years ago. I haven't changed my view. The IMF got involved in the bailouts of Eurozone countries, doing a whole host of things that I promise you were not in their founding charter, which is why I held it up in the European Parliament and waved it in the European Commission's face. What good it did me. They are no longer engaged purely in helping countries in financial difficulty. They are playing global politics. The hell with them is what I have to say, but please tell me I'm wrong. Amanda from Wakefield says, always thought there'd be some short-term disruption. You'd be a fool not to. There's no gain without pain. Well, Amanda, if what you're saying is Brexit could lead to a few bumps in the road, but longer term it's the right thing to do, then I think anybody taking a medium to long-term view would accept that. The trouble is, the narrative that is being put out is that it'll be negative forever. Let's go to Manchester. Speak to Mark. Good evening, Mark.
Well, good evening, Nigel.
Are you worried by what the IMF are saying?
No, I was like yourself. When I heard this today, so normally I catch your show in the morning. I get it on YouTube before I start work, but today I've been working from home. I'm in Stoke at the moment in the Premier Inn.
Right.
So,
do you know what? Do you know what? I mean, we shouldn't do advertising really, but they've got very comfortable beds, haven't they?
yeah.
Because I've after years and years on the road as a UKIP leader around the country, they weren't always the best places to stay. The locations weren't always great, but the beds were good.
They are good, and I think the hotels are quite good in that you know what you're going to get wherever you go.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so I was listening live to that, but I was furious all day because, again, I think we've got projects there which you'd expect from the liberal left in this country, but we're getting on a globalist level now. As we start to panic towards a solution to all this, and I think Christine Lagarde, I was so infuriated, it's jaw-dropping. This is a woman who gave $400 million to a friend of President Sarkozy, and was she supposed to be prudent with finances? And no sanction was ever taken against her.
She was convicted with no penalty, because that's okay. We're all in this big club together.
So that it's a similar institution to the European project, the failing project.
Well, actually, the European project virtually hijacked the entire IMF in Washington. And can you believe? Dominic Strauss-Kahn and then Lagarde running the IMF in Washington. And you realise, Mark, and this is not folks' conspiracy theory, but you realise why the globalists love the European Union project, because they see it as a forerunner of some form of world government.
Yeah. So she's a globalist.
Yep.
It's the same with Mark Carney.
Oh, don't start me on him. Don't start me on him. I mean, bad enough, Mark. Bad enough being told that he's been kept on for another year by our Chancellor. Now we hear he's going to get UK citizenship and go to the House of Lords. We'll never see the back of him, will we?
No, he's a globalist, and again, a different agenda. And again, I just was so shocked when he intervened like that, and with really trying to go for Middle England, so frightened to death about any loss of equity they might have. and I don't think it'll wash.
Nor do I. Mark, enjoy your evening. Thank you. Les on Facebook says, the warning gets louder. Still, people just laugh it off. Actually, Les, in Christine Lagarde's case, the warning is sotto voce compared to what she gave us the week before the referendum. But then, of course, the global elite would have done anything to pervert the course of the UK referendum. My goodness me, didn't they try hard? And didn't they fail? Let's go to Watford and speak to Alex. Good evening, Alex.
Good evening, Nigel.
So, Lagarde has said what she said.
Yes.
Do you take it to be a valid point?
Of course.
Oh, right.
Why would you not take it seriously? She didn't just say Britain is going to lose out. She said that the European Union and Britain will not benefit from whatever deal is arrived at, because it will not be superior to the arrangements they already have in place. When you disrupt business, and business is the generator of wealth, both in Europe and also in the UK, you naturally are going to have negative effects, both on employment and in terms of infrastructure, both in Europe and also in the UK.
Well, Alex, to be fair, you know, I have said that her warning was not as dire as it was before the referendum, and you are absolutely right in adding that she did say it would damage European businesses too.
Absolutely, Nigel, because the point is, though, that you're missing, you keep making reference to people who made predictions prior to the referendum. We are still in the European Union, Nigel.
But no, Alex, Alex, come on. Osborne and others said the mere act of voting Brexit, and she said the same thing, the mere act of voting Brexit would lead to this terrible doom-laden catastrophe.
They didn't say that. What they said was that if we come out of the European Union, there will be negative effects. Some of the effects will be felt immediately after the vote, like the pound diving and whatever. Other effects will be more progressive. And that's obvious, because we're still in the European Union. We're still following all the rules.
I know.
We're still trading directly with Europe. So to pretend that by making that vote, people are out of the European Union, you and the other naive people who you push in this mindless intent to really damage the country.
That's right. So our democracy, Alex, doesn't matter. Our independence is irrelevant. Our borders don't matter. We're naive. We're thick. We're ignorant. That's what you're saying, Alex, isn't it?
No. Nigel, what
sounds like it.
I was listening to you in the car.
You know.
And then something struck me as to how dangerous you actually are.
Oh, gosh.
No, Nigel,
I'm very dangerous. You're quite, Alex, you're right. My idea, we should govern ourselves through the ballot box, is dangerous. Let's have a group of old men we can't vote for running Britain and hope for the best, shall we?
Oh, come on, Nigel. We've had old men running Britain for time immemorial.
But at least we could sack them.
The reality of the Brexit situation is this. Let me put it on the line for you. Britain has had, for a long time, a democratic deficit. That means people's votes have not counted, and we've not been able to change the ruling elite in this country. People naively voted for Brexit thinking that that's going to do it. Sadly, it's not.
Well, when you have a sovereign parliament that makes its own laws, even if we elect a bunch of old duffers, at least they'll be our old duffers, and we can sack them once every 4 years. Alex, come back again for a sparring match. You and I have got more to say, but for now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show. It's 6:45 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
The International Monetary Fund has warned all possible Brexit outcomes will carry costs for the UK economy. The UK's largest car maker, Jaguar Land Rover, is moving some workers to a 3-day week from October until nearly Christmas over Brexit trading worries. And Game of Thrones is leading the nominations at tonight's Emmy Awards in LA, where it's up against The Crown and Handmaid's Tale. LBC Weather, strong winds and heavy rain spreading northeastwards tonight, windy elsewhere, a low of 12 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm J-Louise Knight, and there are queues on the anti-clockwise M25 towards an accident that's just happened. It's shortly before South Mims at junction 23 and is closing 2 lanes. On the Essex stretch going clockwise, all traffic's being held between 27, that's the M11, and 28 at the A12, whilst an accident's moved to the hard shoulder. The M11 is struggling out of town from Loughton at 5 to Harlow at junction 7, where a lorry broke down on the exit slip earlier. Now, for the tube, an earlier signal failures left severe delays on the whole of the circuit Circle line, the whole of the Hammersmith and City line, and on the Metropolitan line between Baker Street and Aldgate. And on the trains, London Overground have severe delays from New Cross Gate to Crystal Palace and West Croydon, and South Eastern have half-hour delays between Hither Green and Dartford.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Would a new centre party revitalise British politics? That's at 8. And at 9, is there a dark side to veganism? Plus the LBC News Hour coming up.
Ian Dale on LBC.
Your business has come this far, but now's your time to soar into the skies of spectacular with a fast, affordable Funding Circle business loan. With decisions in as little as 24 hours and a dedicated account manager, there's no waiting around. So join the thousands of businesses who have taken out a Funding Circle loan and help your business fly. Apply today at fundingcircle.com. Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. T's and C's apply.
Based on Sarah Waters' best-selling novel and from the Academy Award-nominated director of Room, critics are calling The Little Stranger a spine-tingling drama.
A long time ago, was this child here?
Susan died before I was born.
Deliciously dark and mysterious.
Will be explained.
How innocent you are.
Superb. One of the year's finest films. 5 stars.
What happened next is a mystery to me.
The Little Stranger. In cinemas Friday.
Calling all hard-working minicab drivers. Are you earning between £1,000 and £1,600 per week? No? Well, you could be, with Greyhound Car's 18% commission rate. As part of a pooling group of 45 minicab companies in London, we have high demand and are now offering 18% commission deals for new drivers. We allocate each job within 5 seconds to the nearest available driver, so you spend less time travelling to jobs and more time earning money. Apply today at greyhoundcars.co.uk.
Rolo, if I let you off this lead, promise not to run into the angry farmer's field. I'm not going after you again. Be good.
Rolo! Nobody likes chasing things. Xero online accounting software works for you and automatically sends invoice reminders, so you'll have less chasing to do and more free time.
Rolo! Come back!
Try the award-winning Xero, free for 30 days. Ask your accountant or visit xero.com.
Your company's doing pretty well. Your tax position's okay. So what's keeping you awake at night?
To face the future with confidence, talk to Vision Consulting. We've expanded from Gants Hill to the Gherkin, with clients from the fishmonger to the multi-million-pound property investment company. And our growth as a firm of chartered accountants and registered auditors is based on our passion for our clients' business.
Have confidence in your accountant. See visionconsulting.co.uk.
Is your money working as hard as you do? Think about it. While you're grafting away, is your money working too? No? Then it's time to Wealthify. Wealthify is the smart, easy way to start investing. Just say how you want to invest. Cautious, adventurous, somewhere in between? And let Wealthify do the rest. Then keep track of your money on the app. Easy. Isn't it time for you to Wealthify? Download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
The global community never rest in telling us that Brexit is an horrendous mistake, and Christine Lagarde, one of my favourite people at the International Monetary Fund, is telling us there are no good outcomes from Brexit, although, to be fair, she's not quite as apocalyptic as she was about Brexit 5 days before the referendum when the whole world was trying to scare us. Before we go back to that, quick thought. Boris Johnson today, in the Daily Telegraph, talks about the December provision for a backstop for the Irish border, if you remember. And he says he was taken in over this position, and he now realises it would lead to us becoming, effectively, a vassal state. And Downing Street have come back and criticised and said, at the time, he congratulated the Prime Minister for her determination in securing the deal. Boris, I'm very pleased that you are speaking up in favour of Brexit. But, you know, when that backstop was agreed in December, I talked about the humiliation of a British Prime Minister leaving Downing Street at 4:15 in the morning to meet an unelected bureaucrat in Brussels. The terrible deal she'd done, the extent to which I thought it was a betrayal. And, you know, I turned around and there was no one there with me. I was on my own, being sneered at in the Times. Isn't it funny? Farage thinks it's a betrayal. Everybody else thinks it's great. Well, welcome to the club, Boris. 9 months later. You know, Boris, I would be very happy to see Boris as Prime Minister, but being wise after the event is not what real leadership is about. You've actually got to have some guts and go ahead of the pack and take some risks. Back to Christine Lagarde. Stuart on Facebook says, the closer to March we get, the more wild the predictions will become. Let's go to a new caller from the heart of England in Coventry, and he's called Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Nigel. Pleasure to speak to you.
Welcome.
In regards to the comments from the IMF, I've been self-employed for about 20 years, so maybe I'm approaching, not in a big way, but maybe I'm approaching this too simplistically. But the way I view Brexit is almost like as a business negotiation. And the problem is that as a country, we're negotiating from a very weak position at the moment because we're so divided. The problem is you have the people who voted Brexit, the people who voted Remain, and the problem is the Remain voters are not getting behind this, and they're showing our cards to the EU that as a country, we're not, although Brexit won the majority, we're not fully behind this.
Actually,
and the problem
Mike,
is if you go into a business negotiation like that, you're asking to be undermined.
Some polls show, Mike, that up to a third of Remain voters now say we accept the democratic result, let's simply get on with it. So there is a bit more unity in the country than you might think. The trouble is, it's the Westminster lot and the media lot that give a different impression, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's the problem. If you're approaching this from a business negotiation, the last thing you want to present yourself as being is divided on the issue. And with the IMF, I just see as a fresh attack to just try and create more derision and division within the country. Yeah. Because if we're not approaching these negotiations from a united front, then we're a very easy target to be talked down into, not necessarily even a no agreement, but a bad agreement, an agreement that tries to appease everyone that will end up appeasing no one. And that's not what we need. What we really need is for people who are very fervently in the Remain camp, and I understand where they were coming from. I did vote to leave myself, but I understand their position. It's very. I don't want to sound patronising, but it's very safe and comfortable to remain within the status quo. But people who voted for Brexit voted because they wanted change. They didn't like the direction the country was going. They didn't like the fact that we were becoming unified as a part of Europe, not with it, but a part of it. And we just need to really just unite all together and just try and push forward to not because you necessarily believe in the cause, but just from a negotiating point of view. If we're not united, we're not going to get a good deal out of this. And there are some Remainers out there who I feel, as insane as it sounds, will not be happy unless Brexit is an absolute disaster.
Oh, yes. I mean, there are some, of course, who would, actually rather want Brexit to fail because they so believe in the European project. Mike, you are one of 5.2 million men and women in this country who run their own companies or who are sole traders. Do you think British politics listens to your voice these days?
Truthfully, no, Nigel.
No, I don't.
I did historically used to be a Conservative voter, but I'm going to be truthful. In recent years, I've become a bit disillusioned with all the parties because they're all so similar.
I think do you know, Mike, a lot of small business owners are in exactly the same camp as you. They don't recognise that anyone is even comprehends what they do. Thank you. Moving on. Martin is calling from Dartford. Good evening, Martin.
Oh, good evening, Nigel.
So has Christine Lagarde spoilt your evening? Has she ruined your dinner tonight with these concerns over what will happen to us with Brexit?
No, well, I'd like to give you a little anecdote that defies everything she and the other so-called experts say.
Go on.
My business is very Italy-centric, and it's a small business, about £3 million a year turnover. But the vast majority of it used to come from Italy. About 10 years ago, or just following the financial crisis, when the pound was in a very sorry state, which a lot of people have forgotten about, a lot worse than it is now.
I'm not sure about that, but anyway, go on.
Well, it was £1 to €1, wasn't it? Near enough. So,
to the euro, it was hard against that. Anyway, Martin,
yeah.
go on.
So, at the same time, I was having quality issues with one of my suppliers in Italy. It was getting too expensive, and I sought to find the same products manufactured in the UK. I've now, as a result, I moved £500,000 worth a year of production from Italy to England. So really, it was my own mini Brexit, if you like.
Yes.
And in fact, it's the amount is increasing year on year.
So a devalued currency brings manufacturing back to the home country.
Exactly. So I'm proud to say that I've increased our GDP by £500,000.
Well, I'm delighted to hear it, Martin. And you know, one of my arguments for Greece is if Greece left the euro, got the drachma back, and it fell by 70%, suddenly, rather than importing household goods every day, they'd make them in their country. Such would the inflationary cost be of buying those products. So when Madame Lagarde, Martin, tells us that, you know, no good can come of Brexit, you disagree, don't you?
Absolutely. I found out by accident, but it was a happy accident. There's a little follow-on to this as well, in that one of my now suppliers in the UK, an engineering company in the Midlands, I speak to one of the directors regularly.
Yep.
Soon after I started giving them a lot of work, he was saying he'd employed some Eastern European machine operators, how good they were, how brilliant their work ethic was. And I agree, I do employ a Lithuanian girl myself. But 2 years later, I had the same conversation with him. We had our little sort of Victor Meldrew type conversations. And I said, well, how's it going with with your staff? He said, Eastern Europeans, sorry, but never again. I said, what on earth happened? And he said,
I'm going to have to rush you, Martin. Come to a conclusion very quickly.
Basically, he got them, trained them up to a really good point.
Yeah.
Then they left.
So why don't we train our own people? Martin, I'm going to have to love you and leave you, but why not start training our own engineers, our own doctors, our own nurses? I'm back tomorrow night at 6. At 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick, but up next...